Call the special meeting of the Board and Finance Committee to order. Roll call, please. Lowry here.
Cavazos here.
Goss here.
Orchard here.
Wallace here.
Schwengel here.
Mulligan here.
Columns here.
Johnson here.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. If you have cell phones, if you wouldn't mind putting them on vibrate or turning them off. And also a reminder again to speak into the microphones. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder, we are scheduled again next Tuesday. Okay, we left off last time at page 2.
On the handout I gave tonight, I got the changes incorporated from the last meeting. Also on line 17, library, column J, 30,442. That just came in this afternoon, so I added that. Line 35, building inspection and expense, I changed that. That's a reflection of the income that'll be talked about later down the, probably next time at the meeting, so that's 37,803. So those are the changes on the first page that we went through last time.
Okay, going to page 2. And this basically is Public Works.
On page 2, column E there, I've got those, the budget items in dark because I could not remember if I put the revised items in there from the special town meeting in June. But so those are the revised budget numbers after that meeting.
So it's about $14,000 more total, line 74.
From which number?
No.
You had the budget number in the, oh, okay, sorry, that was the wrong direction. It's less.
So the new total highway budget or public works budget is 426,311,01.
And the proposed then is 393 plus. Everybody following? Okay. Line 52, are there questions, comments?
Are there major repairs, Bud, there, anything that we can avoid?
You never know when one's coming up. We've got a repair again now on our 99 International that's scheduled for replacement in the transmission, so we don't know what that's going to run. Usually that's a gearbox item in Green Bay, and that's it can range anywhere from $750 to $2,500 on the torque converter is not locking up right now, so we're waiting to see what that might be.
But that'll be in this year's budget, right? That's why you're up to 32.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, going on to line 53, supplies and expenditures. Line 54, ads and surveys.
Why the increase? What are we anticipating?
Line 54.
Line 54, correct.
What are we anticipating?
Yeah.
We are anticipating ads and surveys. That's just, we never know.
Well,
That's a big
We-
jump.
Yeah, it's 500% increase.
we budgeted 200 last year. We may hit 100 this year. Can't we take that down to another 200 or 300?
Sure.
Yeah.
300?
300?
Yeah,
So it'll be 700?
No. 300.
300.
no, it'll be 300.
Going on to line 55, signs and posts.
Wouldn't that be like stop signs and that kind of stuff, or?
All
Yep.
kinds of signs.
Road signs, stop signs, that's what's in there.
Line 56, maintenance, surface maintenance.
Okay, we got 550 ton of salt at $61, the new price. Road oil at 15,000, sweeping at 750. Cutting trees, it's miscellaneous trees, 1,200. And cold mix at 15 ton at $80 a ton. For $1,200, that gives 51,700.
How come that isn't with the highway budget?
This is the highway
This
budget.
is the highway.
This piece,
Huh?
that's what the highway committee has for their 5-year program.
Okay, gotcha. Public safety, all right.
So that total again comes to 51,700. And we are locked into the salt. We've got some, this year we'll be taking early fill, 150 ton. The 550 would be next year, our winter plus into next fall again. Probably going to be a little more than $61, but we're not required to take the, there's a reserve amount in that of 100 ton that we don't have to take if we don't need it.
Do you know what percentage we mix sand to salt?
Between 5 and 10%.
Okay,
You mentioned some other surface maintenance materials and, or work that besides the salt and such for winter? It's a hot mix or
Just the cold mix.
cold mix.
cold mix?
In here, the, any hot mix paving is further down.
And cold mix is like potholes and things like that we do ourselves.
Right, we pick up a supply either in Bailey's Harbor or further, and we have it stored in the sand salt building out back.
Okay, any other questions? Going on, excuse me, to line 57, the shop fuel.
That's 5,500 gallons of propane at $1.64 a gallon.
$1.54, you say?
$1.64.
64. And they changed out the, what was the last year, I believe we changed out the heaters. They were not, for some reason, they were not spec'd correctly. So I think we've got a much better situation for heating the shop.
Who's that supplier for 64 cents?
Who is it from?
Yeah,
Ferrogas.
have you bid it out again recently or not?
Yeah, it's in the group.
Because I just signed up for 54 cents a gallon, $1.54, 56.
Who's that?
Pardon me?
Who's that from?
Milton,
Milton?
yeah.
They quoted me with $1.94. We're not buying from Milton anymore.
They're the ones that really hurt people.
Yeah.
$6 a gallon, yeah.
Okay, any other questions on the shop heat? Then going on, the vehicles, non-leaded,
That's 1,500 gallons at, I'm putting a cost at $3.85 a gallon on that.
That's a guess.
Yeah,
Pure guess. We're right around 370 to 375 somewhere this year, so that's the range.
and then line 59 is diesel fuel?
I got 10,000 gallons at, again, 385.
That's a good price.
Yeah, for diesel. Line 60, oil and supplies?
Can we just stop
Oh,
one
go ahead.
second, back up, John? You know, the county bids it out and they get a fixed price on the fuel, diesel fuel and gasoline for the year. And I think they maybe sell it to other townships at that price. Have we ever looked into that?
Not to my knowledge.
Do they have to buy a quantity for that?
I don't know, I'm pretty sure, I know that Kaloji bids out the fuel when he gets a certain amount. And it could be a good bid or it could be a bad bid, depending where the market goes. But I know that they sell I'm pretty sure they sell the other communities. I know they sell the school systems, that gasoline and that diesel fuel at that price.
I've checked around with a couple other vendors, and the one we have has been the most advantageous for the last couple of years.
I would assume the county has already made their bid, right?
I don't know.
Might be worth asking them.
Yeah.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
I guess the bad part would be you'd have to, wherever they sell, you'd have to get your fuel at their spot over there by Sister Bay.
They wouldn't deliver it to the tanks here.
No, it'd be out of their pumps and,
You'd have to go over there.
yeah.
Then we'd have to, we'd have to run our trucks over there and back.
We lose on that.
Mhm.
And it's time, mileage.
Yeah, that may not prove too beneficial.
Yeah,
I'll call them.
Yeah, call them and find out. Okay, any other question on the diesel fuel? Then going on to the oil and supplies. Line 60, I'm sorry.
That's miscellaneous oil, grease, additives.
Can we knock that down $500?
Take it back to 1,200?
Put it at $12.50? If we had it at 12, we're gonna hit 12, let's go back to 12. Or $12.50.
Do I hear 13? 1250.
$12.50.
so we're changing that?
Okay, line 61, shop electricity.
This one came in a little high. I've got instead of 6250, I put 5800 with a question mark. They always jack up electricity somewhat, and I've been fairly close with it, but I think 58 or 6,000 would be a little closer than 6250.
58?
Yep.
58 it is. Telephone?
2,400. We're gonna be at about 22 this year, raised it a couple $100.
They're primarily cell phones?
It's our cell phones and
And landline.
Landline.
Okay. Leave it at 24?
I think with phones, you tend to grow into the amount you budget. Especially if this is cell phone usage.
Right.
All we got here is most of the phone is for the lines and all the programs with it. The actual calls are minimal that get added on there every month. It's the bulk of the bill is all the charges for interstate and all the, whatever comes with it.
Can we take any phones out of service that we have?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many cell phones do we have and how many lines, landlines?
We have 2 cell phones, one is only a 6-month cell phone. and we have a fax line, 2 town lines. The assessor line, we could, I don't know, we could maybe knock that one out. But that one's advertised all over the
Right.
place, so whether that's a, people do call that number, they do use it, they leave messages, so.
We probably better leave it from the service aspect.
There's always messages on there. It's
Yeah.
always beeping when you walk by the door.
Okay. What about the building inspector? Do they pay for their own phone?
mhm.
Okay. How many phones do we have out in the shop? 1 or 2 or 3? Just 1, okay. You don't have any phones in Ellison Bay or out at the quarry?
No.
No.
And who's got the cell phones?
Jay and the dock master.
Can we put the dock master on just a 4 months out of 12?
We do, when they're done, they turn it in, and then we call Cellcom and they take it down to whatever, the
Okay.
winter thing
Winter
that they
rate,
do.
okay, good,
Yeah.
to keep the number,
Yep.
that's important.
How about, well, I'm probably not gonna save anything, if you get a track phone for the dock master, I mean.
There again, that's an
What's a track
advertised
phone?
number.
no,
Can you?
no.
Yeah, but you can
You could-
switch,
you
you
could-
carry,
you
you
You can carry that.
carry
phone and it has
the
the
number,
minutes on
that's
it.
not a problem.
I don't know if we'd save a great deal, but probably not.
What's the intent of its use? I mean, right now, everything is about data. Is there a lot of data being
No,
transmitted on this stuff?
strictly calls.
Yeah.
Strictly calls. People reserving, people coming in, wanting to, is there room, do you have a slip?
When was the last time we looked at the kind of plan we were on with Cellcom?
It's
Was it a month
Frontier
ago
now.
when Jay got his phone?
Yeah, within the last couple months,
Oh,
Okay.
they actually called us up and suggested a better way to go, and we
okay.
switched gears a little bit.
I have a question on the faxing. I rarely use my fax machine anymore, it's always scanned, it'll copy multiple things. Is that out of the question to start doing that more often?
We get faxes in almost daily.
Hmm.
We get faxes in assessment letters. The building inspector has to fax in all of his permits.
Right.
Yeah, it's used almost daily.
Almost hourly.
Yeah, the,
Yeah, the people
Perfect.
sending have to have access to scanning, and a lot of
Yeah,
people don't have that.
don't have
yet.
that yet. I think the time will come, but
Yeah.
am I hearing we'll leave it at 24?
I think so.
Okay. Going on to line 63, wages.
That is a pending approval of the Personnel Committee's recommendation. I entered that recommendation into this number.
So it's going down?
From the 2014 budget, yeah.
Was that because of the overtime, bud?
Yeah.
So overtime, this is the actual, including overtime, the 161.
That was budgeted, that was last year's budget.
That was last year's budget.
That was last year's budget.
Last year's total estimate is the 154.
154, I meant to say, excuse me, yeah.
Yeah.
That's including all that overtime because of all the plowing, the extra plowing and all?
Correct.
Yeah. And then the question always comes up, and just to do due diligence, the question is, will a part-time, since overtime is obviously a premium wage, will a part-time or additional employee reduce the overtime, the premium wage, even with net the salary that he or she would get? And it seems to me, but then again, I think this is just due diligence, it seems to me that the kind of overtime is the one that's controlled by forces beyond our control. And when you have forces beyond your control, you just can't put a shift on and say, well, I'm gonna have a fifth person and we won't have overtime because that fifth person is there. When the snow comes and the emergencies come, it's all hands on deck. Overtime is what's required. I mean,
That's
it's-
that's the only overtime we have.
exactly. So it's, in other words, to just go through the normal procedure as to whether overtime is worth it, you ask yourself, can I add an employee or a part-time employee to offset that overtime, which is a premium? And the answer to me just seems to be no, that the normal question about overtime, which is a very big chunk of that budget, would not be resolved by saying, we'll do away with overtime by adding a half a person or a person. It just doesn't seem like you could anticipate the need.
What was the total amount of overtime, or estimated? Do we have that?
I don't have that here.
On a similar note, is the winter time when you experience the most overtime and work?
Yeah, that would be for
It's
snow plowing.
It's the plowing.
So do you do 3 full-time and 1 part-time?
Well, the way they have it, okay, the way they break that out, 3 of the staff do the main roads, town roads. The 4th person is doing the parking lots and the cemeteries, right? Am I correct on that?
Post office,
Post
Mossy,
office.
Mossy Cliff
With-
Trail.
With the pickup truck, not the big equipment.
Okay, I
So
get,
we need 4 men on duty when there's snow.
right, but that's my question, do you do 3 the rest of the year and then add a 4th one
Oh,
as
I
a
see.
temp?
Seasonal.
Well, the 4th person, though, is the one now that ends up doing a lot of the work in the parks, in the cemeteries,
In the summer months.
in the summer months.
Okay. It's a big part of our expense.
Yeah, yeah.
How many kids do we hire this summer?
How many what?
College kids?
Do we hire?
Yeah.
None,
None?
none. No, and I think if you look at comparative staffing for the town compared to surrounding communities, with 4, we do an amazing amount of work with 4 people. I'm not sure what the other communities have part-time staff in the summer. I know they do hire, so.
What's the town policy on overtime? Over 40 hours is overtime?
Right.
So it's not over 8, it's over 40.
Correct.
It's over 40, yeah. Yeah. And if we have a mild winter, I mean, that obviously is gonna go down, but from what the weather people are predicting, I'm not sure we're gonna have that luxury, but. So do we wanna leave that at that figure?
Yeah.
Unemployment is a big figure these days.
Mhm.
What, 8.9 or 9.8% of the salary? Is that in this figure, Bud, or is it in another place?
It isn't anywhere. We don't pay unemployment unless somebody claims.
Yeah.
We don't.
We've got employment taxes though, right?
No,
No.
Really?
No,
Is that an exemption because we're a municipality? Because I know the businesses pay it on their full wages.
correct.
Wow, that's
Huge
a gift
savings.
we should be grateful for.
Mhm.
Because
And
it's way up there. It's the highest it's ever been.
And then if somebody does claim unemployment, we get a bill from the state to reimburse them for what they've paid out. We don't have anybody that claims unemployment.
What that would mean, Frank, if you reduce the snowplow crew by 1, you'd be paying his unemployment anyway, so you might as well
Keep them.
keep him.
Correct.
Okay, going on to line 64, retirement.
these
I'm
other
looking forward to
numbers
that.
Oh, I'm
are,
sorry.
the next 2 numbers are a function of the wages, so
Right, they're all
Yeah.
percentages.
wages.
Yeah.
Is FICA going up this year? That's a big, it's almost a $3,000 increase.
Not that I'm aware of.
Maybe we could chisel that 12.4 down a little bit,
Do you have a calculator out here?
I don't think so.
get it down to 10 maybe?
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah. if I
Because
could-
if the estimate right now is at 96, and we had all that overtime, it doesn't seem to me that we're gonna hit that 12 figure.
It looked like our budget for 2014 was maybe too high.
Do you wanna head for 10?
What do you think, Bud?
Well, again, that's a function of your
Yeah, that's true.
wages
Yeah, that's
and
true, too.
your
Yeah, you can't-
retirement, so you're taking a percentage of those other numbers. The number that's in here on column I, that number might not be a full number because I'm pulling that off of the wage,
Oh, okay.
wage report that Janet does there, so those two numbers, that number might be somewhat higher.
All right, but 30% higher?
Well, it's higher than.
Could be, could be.
Yeah, it could be, actually.
But why was it 12,494.39 and 14 budget?
Because that's a function of the
Calendar.
retirement.
Yep.
If you take the 155,264 and multiply it by FICA,
Yeah.
by the percentage, that's what it comes out to be.
Okay.
And that 9,600 number might not be a
That's a guess number.
true number in there.
Okay.
We'll check that out and
Yeah,
bring that back next time.
good.
66, medical?
Medical is down. Instead of 20%, it's, I put 10% in there, or 5% in there for an increase.
Oh, for an increase.
Yeah.
How much do employees pay of the total premium?
15,
Really? That's pretty good.
yes.
That's extraordinarily good. What was the last time there was any kind of cost sharing on benefits?
That's the personnel committee. I don't know what the personnel committee did this last round. I'm not on it.
That was not addressed.
Municipally speaking, 15 is not extraordinarily good. It's in there. Some pay
No,
as low as
oh,
10.
well, maybe I misunderstood. So employees pay just 15% of the total cost of their premium? That's really good. In this day and age.
In this day and age,
Extremely
right.
good. You're seeing much more like 30 to 50
Yeah.
these days.
But that's,
In the private sector and public sector,
yeah, they're
12% is the norm.
Right.
So
County, I think, is 10% if I
So
remember
is
correctly.
Ephraim.
we pay more, the employees here in the town pay more towards their premium than Sister Bay, Ephraim, Bailey's Harbor, Gibraltar.
Is it offset at all by the coverage?
No, no, not at all,
They still have deductibles.
no.
I think we leave it at 26,744, we're doing as well.
yeah. Okay, going on to building repair. Major drop.
Why is
What
that
aren't we
so
doing?
low?
The, this year's total consists of the salt shed roof of 15,045 and building repair, other repairs of 8,000. Next year, 3,000, not anticipating any large items.
No, this is with strictly public works, though. This is
Right.
not including some of the other buildings, so.
That's not the women's club?
No,
Okay. That's been done, hasn't it, Bud?
No, the salt sheds, the one out here has been done.
But not the women's club yet.
No.
How's it holding up? Any water inside?
No, it's not leaking.
I'm skating on thin ice, but I guess it's pretty good.
okay. Engineering, nothing budgeted. Streetlights,
I usually add 10% onto the previous figure. That's 13,908 plus 10%.
Public service gets that money, right?
And Wisconsin Public Service has just been bought out. A lot of us are suspicious that
we may see a
we're gonna see
increase.
some rates increases.
I think a number of years ago, we had a request to put streetlights on every corner, if I remember correctly, didn't we?
Not every corner, but a few more.
A few more, okay. Anyway. Okay, legal highway, number, line 71.
12,000 is just an estimate. The legal for this year is Old Stage Lane, period.
Can we take that down to 10?
That's, yeah, I would suggest we take that to 10.
Not through the year yet.
We're in this constant legal battle with Old Stage Lane.
Does that go back to the number 12 too, legal?
Number 12 would be other legal.
Yeah, there are
Oh, okay.
two legals, one for public
Because
works.
that number just jumped out, because we
Right.
talked about that last time.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we could take these legal fees over the last 5.5 years I've been on the board and go to court and say you reimburse the town?
Well, we did win one time,
Talking about Lautenbach. right?
yes, yeah.
Well, he had a judgment against him on the jury trial, and we were supposed to get paid whatever the fine was, and
We haven't seen it.
I haven't seen any money, have you?
Nope.
Nothing's come our way in that fine, so, and that was only a couple $100.
Planted a cornfield in one of the quarries for the county owned.
Yeah. And we've asked our attorney on numerous occasions, isn't there a way to stop this? And apparently not. So,
Apparently Wisconsin isn't one of those states that after a certain number of
no.
frivolous lawsuits, they won't even hear him anymore.
You know, I took a look at that from the air. He has about half of that cut down now, that 40.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So when he cuts it all out, he'll have no reason to go back in there.
Well,
The only problem is he can't access it now. The only access was by a freeze-down road. That expired in 2013, and that's it. And if we get in trouble with the DNR and with the Corps of Engineer, if we allow them to go in there, they come after us, not after him. So, and he's had an offer from
Nature conservancy.
Nature Conservancy, but they'll, by their rules, can only pay the, assessed value, and he wants, basically, he has wanted in the past double that, so it's kind of a,
what bothers me is when he got permission and had to go in and thin out, those trees were marked. And I believe the forester has to leave a certain amount of the smaller trees to come up. And if you look at that, you wonder if he's taken more than was marked. Is there any record that the DNR guy that you worked with, Bud, had of how he marked the trees and how many he left?
They monitor the cutting, and at one point a few years ago, Plazak said that he had about 2 acres left to harvest. And if he would have, from what I understand, if he would have requested it, they would have probably forgiven the contract and let him out of it, but he didn't do that, so it's still sitting there to be harvested. Plus, there's a follow-up harvest after, I don't know, 5 or 7 years or 10, whatever it is, if he stays in the program, that they come in and check it again. And then if there's more harvestable timber, then he can do that again. So,
But they have no way of knowing what they marked, because he took all those trees down that were marked. If he took more down, they wouldn't know.
Yeah, maybe not.
Has Blazek been back in there in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, Bud? Could you talk to him about it and see?
I don't know. I certainly ask him.
The trouble is, the DNR never really follows through on things like that.
Okay, we're taking legal down to 10 for highway? Okay. And the quarry?
Quarry, I got a reclamation fee of 900. Mining class of 1,200. And we got 5,000 for stump grinding in there.
That seems
Part
okay
of,
to me.
part of this is offset by the income from
Mining class.
the mining people that pay, so it doesn't really cost us that much, but there's income further down for that.
Is stump grinding something we do all the time?
Lately, with the trees that we've been, and stumps that we've been getting out, yeah. And what I'm doing is, the stumps and brush that go in there come from highways and parks, so I'm splitting it up between highways and parks.
Okay, moving on. Now, the Public Works Highway will adjust downward somewhat. Okay, going on to line 76, equipment. Ouch.
Patrol truck. That number has changed to 242,531. The chassis for the truck is coming in at 128. The box and plows at 66.5. The 1 ton to replace the 997 pickup at 44,031. And half a trailer for the excavator at 4,000.
Half a trailer.
Half a trailer?
The other half's going to the parks.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
The front half or the back half?
The left side.
This is a perfect example of where we need a capital
Yep,
fund that is funded religiously
yes, yeah.
every year, so that the bumps in the road like this are not absorbed all in one year.
The 97 pickup has how many miles on it? Do you know?
It has 100,756. And it is rotten. Like the guy said, the only thing holding the box together is the spray and bed liner right now.
Now, is that the one we used for the plowing on the,
No,
what do we use this one for? What is it?
this is a utility vehicle. We've got our fuel tank on there for filling up vehicles out on the road in the parks or wherever. We pull trailers with it. It's getting to the point where it's not really the greatest to pull trailers anymore. So it's basically a utility truck.
Could we eliminate that with the other, and utilize the other pickup?
Which other one?
One
The
for
the one
47,000.
Brian uses most of the time.
No, that one is not designed for pulling.
Could you get rid of both of them, and get one that is?
And I believe that one's not a four-wheel drive.
So what's the total cost on this particular vehicle to replace it?
The pickup,
Yeah. Well, not the pick, the one, what do we call it, the
Patrol truck.
patrol truck?
So it's one of the big ones.
128 plus 66.5.
Wow.
That's a solid plow truck.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about the 3/4 1-ton truck.
probably 1 ton, I would think.
The pickup would be a 1 ton.
Yeah.
So the question was,
Now, can you get rid of that?
well, could you get rid of 2 trucks and get one good one? You have one now, right, that you use for, and you have 2 right now. One's fair and one's junk.
And they're both used on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You couldn't get by with 1 truck instead of 2?
Not for what we use these 2 trucks for, no.
You know, if you're taking fuel out with the patrol truck, you're actually taking fuel out to like the plows and
That's going on the one pickup, not on the patrol
oh, that goes
truck.
on the pickup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes out to our, basically our, whatever we're working on the roads with, grader, excavator, bobcat, highway mower. And these have been in the budget for about 2 years now, in the 5-year forecast. So that was, when Jay made the schedule out, these 2 came up for replacement this year. So it's not a surprise. The patrol truck, since last May, a year ago May, we've had about $7,500 in repairs. The box is rusting. The plow is loose, worn. It's been shimmed up a couple of times already. That's the one that has the lockup in the torque converter is kittywampus right now. So depending on our phone calls to the gearbox in Green Bay, we'll see if we need to take it down for that item.
If you're going to replace that particular truck, does it make sense to repair it?
Well, right now, we can get on the line that they call it to get a new truck, would come the middle of the winter, maybe towards spring. So we're gonna need that truck yet for plowing this winter.
I think John's point was well taken, though.
Pardon?
I think John's point was well taken. Instead of throwing money into a bad truck, take that same money and use it on a new truck.
But then what do we do for plowing this winter if that
Why can't you,
truck doesn't go?
you always have a shoebox full of money.
They don't, you can't go and buy a truck someplace like that? You just, like you said, you're in line to get a truck somewhere along?
Not with
makes
the, not with the specifications that we need for here. They're just not out there. I mean, they're advertised, but they're either old or they're too small.
Do we get a trade-in on what we have if it's repaired?
The trade-in value isn't real big. He said he would be better off selling it, online or locally to somebody, probably get more money that way.
I mean, is this like a Ford or I
It's a
wish I
Mack.
could picture it.
It's a
It's
Mack.
a Mack.
Mack,
Oh,
It's one of those
Okay.
big orange things
Got it.
the big orange truck.
with a giant plow.
oh, it's one of those. Oh, all right.
It's a patrol truck,
London system.
patrol truck.
Can I switch gears for a moment to a more general overview?
Sure.
We have the 5-year budgeted, forecast for highway. Is there any place in our budget where we can start this year? Okay, 2016, we're gonna need this amount of money, we're gonna have to put away, or we need to put away this amount of money. 2017, 2018. It's one thing to say, this has been on the budget and we've known it was coming, so it's not a surprise. But if there's no money there, it's a surprise. We need a capital improvement or a capital reserve fund for these, and my question is there anything like that in our budget for major capital equipment that runs in the hundreds of thousands of dollars? And if there's not, why not?
There's never been enough money to do
Yeah.
that. And in our discussions, we've added in $90,000 for a fire truck. So somewhere in here, to make this budget, we need to add in some kind of number going into capital reserve. We do.
We've got to start sometime.
Right. Now, I don't wanna get lynched here,
Oh, come
But-
on, I stepped into it.
but is this not a number that can be taken from what we have in reserve for capital purchases. We have a number that's there. It was created last year from the town, or the budget hearing and all the yays and the nays. We have $359,000 in that account. So, are these trucks, knowing that they have to be bought, not something that would come out of that, removing that $242,000 number from our budget?
Can we carry the carryover figure from 14 into 15 per type of purchase?
Haven't even gotten there yet for a carryover.
Okay, when we, started that, again, capital fund with the overage from the highway, my recommendation and suggestion at the time was, let's break out the major purchases that we have coming up and assign dollar figures to the tune of that much money.
Correct.
Because if it just sits there in a capital fund, it's very tempting. And if we can do that, make that start with this budget cycle. Okay, we've got these coming up in 2016, 17, 18. Let's parse out that money for capital improvement, naming the improvements that we're saving for. It gives it direction and consistency.
Well, and I look at equipment, not roads. I look at
Right.
equipment as
Right.
what needs to be purchased.
Absolutely.
We have to figure out how we're gonna get our roads done separately. So, if you look at 16, the only piece of equipment we have is a $10,000 skid steer, okay? Then in 17, we have a $60,000 dump truck.
Right.
So,
But you,
until
now
we
you
get to,
have,
until we get to 18, we don't have another patrol truck. And if we can put a number in to save into capital reserve, we will replenish that. We sell the international to some person,
put that money in
put
there.
it into capital purchase.
We've gotta start sometime.
How
And
much-
This is a decent year to do it.
We've got enough to cover, back to what Janet has floated out there, to cover the 242 with some left over to cover 2016's, the skid steer.
That's
But-
exactly what I'm saying we shouldn't be doing, is
Well-
taking big amounts out of that. That should be parsed out, and we should start the program of capital improvement.
When,
Well, no, I agree with you on that point, but what I'm saying is that you cover that expense this time out, but at the same time, you start plugging money back in. And
Take
it's
the
gonna
life
have to be a,
expectancy, divide, take, if the truck was $100,000 and it had a life expectancy of 5 years, put 20,000 away every 5 years, or every year.
every year.
Right. And if we take out from this budget, if we take out the 242,531 that we have in there, and on some line, put in $50,000 capital reserve, now we've started that, and it's there. So, we're taking out 242, but putting back in 50 or some number that we all agree on down the line here.
And we're taking out the 242 because we currently have that reserve
That
that we can
reserve.
apply towards it.
Right.
yeah, I think,
What do we think about that?
and the point is, the 90,000 that we put in very wisely, I think, in line 81, was Chris did a 20-year out capital, capital request plan, some of which had nothing, some years had nothing in there, and some years had big chunks of money. Took those years, divided it by 20 years, whatever, took that amount total, divided it by the 20 years that he went out, and came up with, this is how much we need. So to Nancy's point, it's a question of just totaling up that entire 5-year plan that John had suggested, last year and 2 years ago, come up with a 5-year plan for budget purposes that way.
Is 5 years long enough? Should be 10?
Well,
Chris went out 20 years, but that's a very specific way that he was able to do that. I mean, I don't know, that's a good question, Hugh, and that's how you beat the question you've raised many times, and we've all been aware of, which is, how do you get out of the debt? How do you keep from borrowing? It's gotta start someplace.
If you
well,
look,
I think in the case of fire equipment, compared to a patrol truck, they're not used anywhere near as much. They're more expensive, obviously, but, so you can kind of project out, what do they figure, 20, 25 years on one of those trucks? Where we're looking at, what, 15?
well, the 99 will be 17 by the time it goes, and the other two, they're, compared to what the International has done, a minimum of 20 years.
But I see no reason why not to go out 10 years at least, take a look. Obviously, what happened going out 5 years came as a big surprise to everybody. I mean, I think we all knew it was sitting back there, but when you see it in black and white, it's like, oh.
If you look on lines 168 and 169, I've put in 100,000 for reserves on both those lines. They might get adjusted when we get to the income, the revenue portion here.
Oh.
But we've got 200,000 factored in as replenishing capital purchases right there. So
So it's already there.
that's a start, right there.
And to answer your question, you know, Janet, about, you know, is that enough, is that a start? I don't know, but my suggestion is that, you know, if we take the entire amount for the patrol truck this year, or we take a significant portion of it, and then look at the rest of the things that are coming up, and divide them out reasonably, which I suppose would take a bit of study, as long as we do it, I feel good about it. And as long as it, as in Chris's, thing that he laid out for us here, everything has a name and a price attached to it. Instead of just a lump, you know, equipment. Everything has a name and a price and a year when it's expected to be replaced.
Well, and if, I mean, as far as capital purchases go, are we just talking vehicles, or are we also talking marinas and all that?
No, not roads so much, but I know,
Yeah,
you know,
just-
I hate to keep bringing up Ephraim because, but I have, you know, no other yardstick by which to measure it. Ephraim eventually added their copy machine, you know, that's $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 when that needs to be replaced, and they don't last forever. Anything that pertains to the running of the municipality, that's a high dollar item with a lifespan.
No, that's the way to do it.
You know, just on this, getting back to the truck, when we have our meetings, we should be really, this may sound strange, but we should have a picture of these trucks and a description of what each one does. Cause I'm still a little confused. I'm not as confused as I was earlier, but I'm thinking, boy, is someone that comes in here and goes, $242,000 for a truck, you know? So,
It's got a good stereo system.
but yeah, we just need to get some good pictures of this
Actually,
stuff, and,
We should probably park them out in
There
the
you
parking
go.
lot.
yeah, you could,
That's a good idea.
could.
Yeah, because I don't, and
It'll be a lightning rod.
Mark the Rusty one out there.
Mark
Yeah.
them all out there.
well, and I don't, I suppose there's a way to figure out how much basically we save by having our own personnel do the repair work. For the most part, on all the equipment that we have, they're doing it out in that shop. Well, okay, so, okay, where are we on the equipment? What are we thinking we want to attempt here?
You know,
Or
this
not
has been
attempt?
brought up once before, a couple times before, but sometimes when they have these kind of problems like this, they set up what's called a separate enterprise fund. So you track the highway is a separate entity, and that might not be a bad deal, and you would have the reserve funds within that. So you show, so in other words, you know what, instead of having this big public works thing, you just be a separate entity for the town. You know, much, I think,
Yeah. What's the thinking here?
I don't, this is all segregated based on the Form C, which gets filed by the town. And, you know, that's set up by the accountant. So, you know, there's, I don't know whether, how the county reports to the state. I don't know how they do that. But this is how the towns report to the state. And they report by these categories: public works, capital outlay in public works. You know, that's why this is divided like it
It
is.
has to all fit into state reports.
Well, if you had an enterprise fund, you'd have to have something that's theoretically making money. And we're not, the town is not out there with any separate department making money because we really can't.
We don't hire out.
I suppose we could plow, offer to plow Sister Bay's streets, but then we need another truck and another guy, so we'll be going the opposite direction. Another thing too about the one-ton pickup is the one that we use now for plowing the small stuff and pulling the trailers. It's getting used for that constantly, and it's getting some heavy use, so it takes some pressure off that truck and help that one to last longer with having that other one to use in conjunction with it.
maybe Charlie Most has an old Suburban he wants to give us.
You already did that.
I know, maybe he's got another one now.
You know, let's take a 5-minute recess and let's go out and take a look what's out there so that everybody understands.
Yeah. Look at it. Looks more like
I just can't get it, you
more
know?
like an M55 tank.
And Diana, we may let you sit in one of those cabs out there.
Can I drive it too?
Fellows will teach you.
And they got and spent $242,000. They have it anyway.
Reverse when you're going forward out of the door.